The Kent School District Board meetings are held in public on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m. at the Administration Center in accordance to the Washington State Open Public Meetings Act. Regular meetings include presentations and reports dealing with district operations, as well as time set aside for public comment. Now, here are your Kent School District Board of Directors. Welcome to tonight's board meeting.
So good evening. It's nice to see so many of you out here. You'd think there's something going on. Something important. But we do appreciate your attendance in our meeting tonight. So we are going to start tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you can please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So again, welcome to our meeting. Mr. Hanscom is joining us via Skype tonight, so he is with us he's here, but just not here. So he's in the corner over there. So wave hi to everybody, Russ, thanks. Okay. And so this is a meeting of the board, which is held in the public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act, and we will allow for public comment later in the meeting tonight. If you're interested in making public comment, underneath the strategic goals poster in the back, there are some blue cards. Please feel free to bring those up to either side of the dais at any time. If you are speaking to an agenda item, please make sure that's noted and it's here prior to that agenda item so that we can get to those cards at that time. And you will have 3 minutes to address the board during that time. So Dr. Puzzle, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, President Strauss, members of the board and audience, we received today a travel request from a student, and it needs to be added to the consent agenda under item 6.07, travel authorization. A student from Kentwood High School will travel to Denver, Colorado, April 15th through 20th, 2015 to participate in the National High School Journalism Convention, and a copy of the paperwork is in front of you. That is the only addition.
Thank you. All right. And it's more than one student, correct?
Just one.
Just one? Okay.
Yeah.
Madam President.
Point of order. Go ahead and make a motion to add to the agenda and go ahead and take for a vote to go ahead and add to the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'd like to entertain a motion to add the request to the agenda for tonight.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right. So we're going to start tonight with some recognition. And we will be taking photos at the end of the recognition. So if there are people here, then we will make sure that we get those photo opportunities. I've asked Karen to read our first one this evening.
This is for Occupational Therapy Month. Whereas the American Occupational Therapy Association has declared the month of April 2015 to be known as Occupational Therapy Month, and whereas the profession of occupational therapy makes valuable contributions in helping people live life to its fullest after an illness or injury, and whereas the services of occupational therapy are available to citizens of Kent through hospitals, home health agencies, schools, clinics, and nursing homes, and whereas the health and productivity of our citizens depend upon the effective use of healthcare resources, including the important services of occupational therapists and occupational therapy assistants. Now therefore be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors does hereby proclaim the month of April 2015 as Occupational Therapy Month and calls upon all citizens to recognize the achievements and contributions of these valued health professionals. Signed this 25th day of March.
Thank you. So can we please have all our occupational therapists that may be with us this evening stand to be recognized?
Oh, too bad.
Oh, well, let's still give them a round of applause. It's one of those sometimes unrecognized professions, so thank you very much. So our next one is on National Public School Volunteer Week. Whereas public schools volunteer
excuse me, whereas public school volunteers contribute unselfishly to the success of students, teachers, and support staff, and whereas school volunteers reflect the highest values of our democratic society by representing people of all ages and all walks of lives, and whereas school volunteers stretch school and district resources to ensure that every student receives help and encouragement according to need, and whereas school volunteers exhibit care, model the best in citizenship, and create a climate that fosters learning and love of education, whereas we declare our appreciation for the approximate 4,000 public volunteers in our district. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District recognizes April 20th through the 24th, 2015 as Public School Volunteer Week in Kent School District and urge all citizens to join us in remembering the dedication and hard work of the local volunteers in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world. So I believe, can we have all of our volunteers, and looking around the audience, I see very many that volunteer in our public schools, to please stand to be recognized. And I believe Mr. Loftus, you.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Apostle. As the proclamation said, each year we have between 4,200 to 4,600 volunteers in our district. The count as of this Monday was right around 2,900 so far this year, but a lot of those had already done their fingerprinting and their vetting and so forth for last year. So at any given time, we have well over 4,000 in the district. We thought if the folks that just stood up, if you'll stand up and come this way, we're going to get a photo of you, but I thought it would be a good idea just to give these folks a chance, just to give you a sense of the scope of the things. Of course, many of our volunteers are people who come in for one day to do a field trip, but many are like the folks that you'll meet here just briefly that come in and day out and give their time, their hard-earned, the only thing that we really own in our life is our time, and they give that. But they also donate their money, they donate their resources. So I just thought it'd be worth a moment to give each just a chance to say who they are and what organization they represent.
Hi there, I'm Brooke Valentine, and I'm a volunteer at the Kent Area Council PTA Clothing Bank.
Part about Kent Area Council Cinderella Project.
Amy, why don't you tell them what the Cinderella Project does, just in case they don't know?
Sure, I will be happy. The Cinderella Project loans dresses for homecoming and prom to students at no cost.
Juliet Perry,
I represent the Community Network Council. Fontaine Communities and Schools.
Anyway, we'd like to get a photo of you folks with the board over on the other side.
Can we give them another round of applause? Well, and as I look around the room and I see the different faces, I know there's a lot more of you that didn't stand up that I know for a fact do volunteer in different places. So I do appreciate all of our volunteers do to make sure that our schools are successful and that our kids are successful. So thank you very much for that. We're going to go now to a presentation, and I believe Dr. Studry, oh, how did I lose you? Sorry.
I'm so little you can't see me. I made it.
Dr. Studry, could you please lead us in the presentation on middle school transportation revision?
It'd be my pleasure to introduce the two people who are going to make the presentation.
Great.
First up will be Mr. Justin Dennison, who's the Assistant Director of Transportation, and his cohort with him tonight is Mr. Ralph Fortunato, who is the Director of Fiscal Services.
Excellent.
Good evening. Okay, so at the request of the school board, the transportation department was requested to do a study that would measure the impact of changing our middle school walk boundary from what it was, which was 1.75 miles to 1.33 miles. And by doing that, we would have K through 8 at the same walking distance. So what we did in order to measure that impact and find out how many students would be affected, we used our routing software to go into a test field, and we changed the boundaries, and we discovered that 290 students would be eligible for transportation. And we used data for next year. We looked at the students from 6th and 7th grade that are in 6th and 7th grade this year moving up. This is the breakdown by middle school. And the largest impact is on Mill Creek Middle School. Across the board, we're going to need 8 buses to take on that extra 290 students. This is the financial impact. 8 buses at $180,000 each comes out to $1.4 million. That would be the one-time cost to increase the fleet by 8 school buses. The yearly costs for operational costs and personnel costs would be $375,000 per year. We have some operational considerations for this. In order to get a bus order of 8 buses, we would need 6 months of lead time from the manufacturer, from the time we place the order till the time we get the buses. We are also maxed out parking at our bus yard. Right now, every possible slot is full. So in order to do that, we would need to make some room for the parking. And there is a solution to do that. There's a building there right now that holds the TOPS program. The TOPS program is going to be relocated, and that building could be raised to make space for parking. We're also moving to, we currently have one CNG bus, which is compressed natural gas. We just got it about a month ago. And that is the future for school buses, I believe. Right now we have mainly diesel buses, but a CNG bus, in order to get more CNG buses, we do need to do some upgrades to our shop as well. That takes a different type of oil, that sort of thing. We also need to fuel them and create a farm for the compressed natural gas. So I'm going to hand it over to Ralph Fortunato.
Well, I'm glad everybody came out tonight to listen to this presentation. So anyway, I'm going to talk about some of the financing. How are we going to pay for these 8 buses, or, and you'll see in the next slide some more buses. Basically, with our school depreciation, we get a yearly allocation from the state based on our depreciation or replacement costs of the existing bus fleet. And it depends on the date when the vehicle was acquired. And for the 2014-15 year, our depreciation allowance is about $715,000. 8 buses at $180,000 is $1.4 million. So that's about, we can only buy about 4 buses. Really doesn't solve the problem. So there's a couple other options. There's a transportation levy, which is available to us. You can do a 1 or 2 year transportation levy. They're rare in the state. Not many of them are out there. You have to have an election, of course, which are expensive. Elections cost about $200,000 for us. And as soon as we can hold an election would be August in the primary or November in the general election. And as soon as we can start collecting the money would be next year, in 2016. And people pay their taxes in April and in October. So we get most of the money in April and May and October and November. Again, that really doesn't solve our problem for right now. Like I said before, they are rare. This past February, Arlington ran one, and they only got 47.5% yes vote on it. However, they do pass. Essequah last year passed one, and they got 70%. They also had an M&O levy, which they got 69% on that. So, but they're not collecting the money until this year. They ran it in 2014, but they can't collect until 2015, the way that the taxes work. So the other option we have is non-voted debt. And our credit limit for non-voted debt, like all the other debts have credit limits, is 3/8 of 1% of our assessed value. And our credit limit right now is $68.6 million. Now, I'm not saying we go out there and spend $68.6 million. But what I am saying is that we do have capacity to buy buses on non-voted debt. And it would work the same way as we would issue any other bonds. We have to have the public hearing. We work with our bond counsel to write the resolutions and get everything ready for you. And then once the bonds are sold, they then go into the Transportation Vehicle Fund, which pays for the buses. And our funding source would be that depreciation allowance we get every year to pay off the bonds. And we've done this before. In 2008, we bought 15 buses through the local program, the State Treasurer's Office, and we paid that off in 2011. And then we bought 18 buses in 2008, and we paid that off in this past December in 2014. The State Treasurer's local program, and local stands for, it's another acronym, we love acronyms, Local Option Capital Asset Lending. And the benefits of this program is that it's very simple. It's low-cost financing. You piggyback with the state's financing rate. And in October of 2014, August of 2014, which is the last information that they posted on the website, a 6-year loan was 1.39% interest. And a 7-year loan was 1.6% interest. So it's pretty low, and it's pretty cheap money, and almost free. So, however, there's some deadlines we have to meet. We have to file a notice of intent by June 1st, and we have to have all documents into them by June 20th so we can get into the July sale of the bonds. What the state treasurer does is they go around to all the local governments, cities, sewer districts, school districts, pile them all together, and they issue one set of bonds. The other option we have is bank financing, and we've done this too. Our Transportation Administration building, we bought that for $1.8 million, and we used bank financing. We went through Cashmere Valley Bank, and they kind of specialized in local government financing. We work the same way as we do the local. We have a public hearing, resolution, we work with bond counsel, and that's what we're doing the next month or so, working with our bond counsel to get everything worked out and see which would be the best option for us, whether it be bank financing or the local program with the State Treasurer's Office. Closing costs are a little bit higher with this. However, one of the nice things with the bank financing, we can, situation arise, we could prepay this off early. The local program, if you got a 6-year loan, you got 6 years to pay it off, or 7 years or 8 years. You can go for the life of the asset, which a school bus is 13 years. We're not going to go 13 years, but. Which brings us to another problem we have with our bus fleet. 40% of our bus fleet, or about 66 buses, are more than 15 years old. The important thing here is that we're not getting any depreciation allowance on those buses because the depreciation has run off. Our last major bus purchase was in 2008 when we bought those 18 buses. We did plan one for 2010, but 2010 we were at the midst of the recession, remember, and the state was, I'll use a real technical term here, monkeying around with the depreciation allowance. We were going to get it, we weren't going to get it, we were going to get some of it this time and some of it next time. So we basically decided we're going to hold off and let's see the dust settles because we don't want to issue any debt without a good funding source for it. And so basically, this is like kind of a 5-year plan here. And basically, if you look at it, the 66 buses plus the 8 is 74 buses, so I rounded off to 75. So you don't want to buy all 75 buses at one time, because first of all, I don't know where we would put 75 buses in order to get rid of the other 75 buses. And then the second thing is they'll all come off the depreciation schedule at the same time. Then we have to buy another 75 buses at one time. So you stagger it out. And if you go to the next series, 2020, 2021, I'm thinking that's when the debt service on the 2015-16 will end, or just about there. Then we can pretty much start this process over. And by using something like that, by 2020, we will have enough depreciation so we can be buying like anywhere between 8 to 10 buses every year, and without having to borrow the money. That's what we should have been doing for the last couple of years, but with the economy the way it was and an unsettling of the depreciation program, we just didn't do, we bought buses. Last year was the first year we bought buses in 6 years. So that's, and we have any questions or comments, Justin and I are more than happy to answer them for you.
Okay, so Russ, I'll start with you did you have any questions or comments?
Well, I'll wait till everybody else speaks first.
Okay,
That's okay.
sure. So Karen?
I suppose another option, instead of getting all those 8 buses right now, what started out with this whole thing was that there was a safety issue for some of the kids walking to Mill Creek. And another option to me would be, if we don't want to spend that on all of the buses just for making everybody within the same distance, could we do it on a safety, sort of prioritize it on a safety level? Give them rankings so that we, bus maybe the Mill Creek kids, or, wherever, the ones that are really walking where there aren't sidewalks or walking in a really dangerous place. Could we get buses for those kids and not necessarily do all of reduce it all down to 1.33?
Yes, you could, but the question then I would ask is that equitable to all the other students that are walking to the Mill Creek Middle School? One of the things that happens at Mill Creek, there are some 15 to 16 apartment complexes that feed into that school that are in the walk zone. Mm-hmm. The other problem that you have, and several of them have, we bus to the elementary school, we bus to the high school, but we don't bus to the middle school because of that difference in the walk zone. That's why we were trying to say, let's take the middle school and elementary and see if we can't solve that problem. So we're trying to solve a couple problems. Yes, you could. We have some protocols about what's dangerous and what isn't dangerous and that, and we could use those, but it wouldn't address everybody.
Right.
I would like to add that, as we've all heard the statement, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. To parents, danger is in the eye of the beholder as well. And I think that it would be difficult for us to discern what is the degree of danger in a walking area for children. I think it's cleaner, more equitable for us to move in the direction of providing equity and busing all students. I think that is the most fair thing for us to consider. While it is a considerable investment, there is a financial package that I think is doable, and this district is prepared to move in that direction if the board chooses to direct us to do that.
So if we purchase the 25 buses, the first round of 25, that would include the 8 buses, the 8 new buses? Okay, thank you.
Oh, I had a question about the local program and the June 1st deadline, if I believe. Is that realistic for us to be able to meet that?
Mm-hmm. I think it is. We're working on, we're putting together some stuff now. So I was looking at the application. We have all the information that they need. Our CAFR is completed, and so that's basically we submit our financial report to them, and then we're set.
Right, yeah, with that interest rate, that seemed like a good option.
Yeah, I don't know whatever the interest rates was when the bonds sell. That's what really tells us what the interest rate is. But interest rates are low, which is one reason why we're last board meeting, you gave us the authorization to start the refinancing of some bonds. So interest rates are low, and so we can get, heck, the last ones were at 4%, which is still low interest. So.
And then my other question was about the TOPS program, and do we know a timeline for that? Because it sounded like that could be a challenge if we don't have a place to put the new buses when they arrive.
Yeah, there's been considerable work already done. Dr. Stedry is working with staff to outline the architectural design of the space, working with the people in the TOPS program, not only for the immediate relocation, but to look at the population coming in the future as well. But Dr. Stedry could add to my comments any additional elements of his study.
We're just beginning now to look at a timeline that would tell us when we might be. We're at an architectural stage right now. One of the things that we're trying to do at the same time is find space. The preliminary plan that we're looking for is a 13,000 square foot space, which is going to be we're limited in where we can put that, but there are some out there. So, but it's not going to probably be chances of it being done for the first day of school, I would say that we should probably look maybe into the 1st of October or something like that. There are some places we can park some buses up at KM that won't necessarily, that we can get by temporarily.
So I have a different viewpoint about equity, and that is, I think that if, at the last discussion on the subject, we looked at what the roadmap districts are doing for their radius, and the information that was given to us is almost all of the roadmap districts have a 1-mile radius. And I was just looking at ours, and it's vastly different. And so for me, this seems very rushed in that we're not really looking at the high schools, and we're not looking in the issues in its totality. And one of the things, after talking with our state, they really have mentioned that they encourage all districts to follow the 1-mile road boundary. And our statute does allow for some flexibility, but they encouraged us to really look at the hazardous condition term in the Washington Administrative Code. So one of the things that I'd really like for us to do is look at those hazardous conditions, the roadway, the environmental, and they call it social conditions. I guess that means safety issues. So we have some areas that are really dangerous, and this is why I brought up the topic in the first place, because of the Mill Creek issue. And I feel like we're moving at a really fast pace to look at this comprehensive without really looking at high schools as well. So what, the 75 buses, will they accommodate the high school population if we were to change that road radius?
And I'll answer for the group. To answer that tonight, I really don't want to do that. I think that's something we have to put to the test and see where we are, because I would not, I just can't answer that now. We need to run the statistics for it, because if you're going to go to 1 mile for everybody, that changes not only the high school, but you're going to pick up a lot more students, so you're going to need a lot more buses. But we haven't run that yet.
Well, I guess I'd like to see if it is going to be comprehensive, I'd like for it to be truly comprehensive. Otherwise, let's work on the most dangerous areas. I mean, that is really the issue that came forward initially.
Yeah, and I think because the reason why it was brought with the middle schools, because our last request at the board meeting was to look specifically at middle schools for the transportation, is why this was brought with middle schools.
For me, it wasn't. It was looking at the fact that other school districts have a 1-mile radius. Do we have other dangerous conditions, whether it's high school, middle school, or elementary? We are the only folks who don't have a 1-mile radius for elementary. So the state is asking, why are we doing that as well? So I don't really understand it, but I would say that we really need to focus in on the safety issue first and not the miles. So I don't know if we can do an analysis based on that, but there are those conditions, those social conditions that would cover, pardon me, I should also add, I'm told that those social conditions would also add additional funding from the state. Even if it's within the 1-mile radius, there would be additional funding if those social conditions were to exist.
I'd like to just add, we thought we knew what the assignment was, and we've followed through with that assignment. If the board would like to change the assignment, we will gladly do that if collectively the board directs us to do that. I think that I'm very proud of the work that's been done based upon the previous direction. Should the board choose to modify the direction further as a result of the board members' comments, please give us that direction at this time.
Well, let's hear first from Russ. I don't know if you had any comments, and then I have a couple of questions, so.
Okay, great, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I really appreciate Karen and Maya's comments. I don't know how we partner with the city and the police department probably, and maybe our own protocols. I would love to see what those protocols are. But I tell you, as a parent with Mill Creek kids and driving by Mill Creek every morning when kids are walking to school, distance doesn't matter to me. and I guess maybe we need to survey parents, or just, again, I do feel like I didn't think we were taking any action. This is a presentation for us to discuss further, right?
Not, Russ, we're not taking any actions tonight at
Right.
this point.
So, you know, I really did appreciate the analysis that the staff did. But I really would like to see a little bit more information, because we're getting hung up on distance versus safety. And again, I think that was the whole point of Maya bringing this forward. So I think there are additional questions to ask. I think that what we've been presented is great. And I do think that we need to look at it further. And if it is a time issue, then maybe by the next meeting, we can at least, it could be phased in over phases, but that's all I have to say right now. And I would love to stay for the superintendent discussion. That's my primary reason for calling in, but I really do need to go, and I deeply apologize.
Okay, thank you.
I'll watch the video.
Okay, thanks. All right, so I had a quick question. So in the cost, right, because there's obviously costs involved in if we move the tops. So aside from what it would cost us for the tops, do we have any estimation in there as far as taking that current building and making it into a parking lot? I know this is the idea of where we would put it, but there's obviously a cost. Do we have any of that yet? Yes?
No, it's not figured in there. We can calculate it though pretty quick.
Okay, yeah, I think it would be good to know, because the additional buses are also going to bring costs for putting in more fueling stations, all of that. It would be helpful for me to be able to have that information as well. And then are we able to sell our older buses? So do we recoup anything from that, or they just go to scrap yards?
They get surplus. They get decommissioned.
Okay.
There's virtually no value to them.
Okay.
If we're decommissioning the buses, nobody else, the school bus is not going to pick them up.
No, we
probably.
take such great care of them. I'm picturing the
do,
Partridge
but-
family
Yeah,
and, stated myself quite a bit. Okay.
And I don't want to leave the impression tonight that because of the age of the fleet, it's not safe. That's the furthest thing from what we're beginning to see with our older buses is parts are becoming very difficult to get. And Blaine and Sells and his group are having to, call around and find them.
Okay. So, so one suggestion that I have is if we want to expand this, right, to looking at safety things and different things like that, and knowing that I think it will take more than a 10-minute at a board meeting for this. So I guess I'll propose two things. One, if we want to expand it, let's agree on what we're expanding it to. And then two, possibly have it be in a work session so that we can have some more question and dialogue about it that doesn't necessarily fit in a shortened time frame here. So it sounds like everybody says, okay, yes, let's do a work session. So let's see if we can agree on what we want to have that work session on so it's productive.
Yes, President Strauss, then I will poll the board with regard to questions that they would like to have answered, areas to be researched, and share them with staff, and we'll come back at a time during a study session to more thoroughly review some areas of interest from the board.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we want to make sure that we do on that is have it soon enough that if we wanted to go for that June deadline, that there's time for staff to be able to do that. And some of the things that I heard, and then was that safety, looking at safety conditions as a high priority, as well as looking at how we do our boundaries and the mile radius. And May had another additional comment, or?
Well, the safety issue, I don't know how that's determined, but there are some specific things that the state is saying that, for example, if there are no sidewalks in place. So they've recommended that there be a committee that looks into that, consisting of cities and law enforcement and so forth. And I don't know how it's been done 10 years ago, since we haven't revisited this. But is there enough time to do that kind of due diligence?
I don't know that. I think we'll start right away with asking the board what areas need to be researched, and then
Honestly, I really don't know.
Then we can
what else.
proceed with a timeline that would meet the deadline for acquisition of those buses. So I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I know for sure safety sounds like that's one, as well as the general radius.
Sure.
But we
Understand.
probably need to have a little more discussion on that. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the study that you did.
Yes,
Thank you
This
very
is
much.
Very impressive.
Okay, so next, we will move to 4.01, the Safety Service Monthly Update. Again, this is a report that comes to the board on a monthly update, and we have Commander Jared Kasner and Safety Support Services Supervisor Tim Kovich here. Did I butcher your last name? You're laughing.
No, we have Officer Ingledow in place
Okay,
of
because I say,
Commander Kasner.
sorry.
Last name.
I got his last name totally wrong. Well, welcome. I didn't get that update in time. So, all right, are there any questions from the board in regards to today's Safety Services report? Any questions? Maya, any questions?
No.
Well, thank you for coming. and
Thank
for
you.
the
Have a good
report.
night.
It was good to get up and move, right? Well done. Get the award for the shortest presentation tonight, so, all right. So, next, somehow I think this might be what people are waiting for. We're gonna skip 5.01 and go to. So the next thing that we have tonight is, as you all know, that we've gone through quite an extensive process of doing a search and going out, and the board has been very, very busy doing interviews and all kinds of different processes to go through to really narrow down as we're looking at who will be our next superintendent to lead us in the next few years. And so at this time, we had two final candidates that hopefully most of you had an opportunity to have a chance to listen to. We had Dr. David Moyer and Dr. Calvin Watts, both highly qualified candidates who came, and we went through a process. And I believe the board is ready to make a recommendation and a final selection. So I am asking for a motion.
Oh, my.
So I can make it, or I'll ask what the motion is.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for a motion to select Dr. Calvin Watts for the superintendent.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So at this time, I'd like to have some discussion so people know the reason why. And one of the things I can just start out to say is that one of the things as far as due diligence that the board did is we did go out and do a site visit to the site. And Maya and I had the opportunity to we were there yesterday, interviewing people for about 8 hours. In Georgia. Talking to them and really getting a feel for the person, because there's only so much you can glean in the couple of hours that you see. And I would just like to say personally that I left there with absolute resolve that we had the right person. In my interviews that I had with people, there were people that had worked with him that made comments such as, "I'm losing my thought partner." I had principals that I spoke to that talked about how collaborative he was and how they didn't feel like it wasn't a supervisor telling them what to do, it was, we're in this together. And we also heard from people who, when we asked, would you follow this person? Would you work for them? And it was absolutely yes, even from people that we didn't necessarily talk to but were in the hallway. There were people that talked about how Dr. Watts made them feel like an important person and what they did mattered, anywhere from people who were research analysts to people who worked in the IT department. And you could tell they hadn't had that conversation before because they both kind of said it and they looked at each other and they're like, wait, you feel that way? I feel that way. And then they said it doesn't make us feel any less valued to know that he valued another person. And so I'll leave that as my comments, and I'll let Maya, I know you were there also, so I'll let you speak to some of the things also.
Yeah, I thought one of the best ways to do this was really look at the weaknesses and strengths that all of you put together and contributed to this process. And we know that his strengths were the same things that we saw when we interviewed the candidates. So I try to kind of look at the weakness section and some of the things that we asked the staff members. There were his strength in curriculum instruction and professional development, for example, his interactions with various ethnicities and families, and his interactions with classroom teachers. And we also just try to get a sense of what his strengths were from this diverse group of people we talked with. I would say we had, how many, 15?
At least. Okay.
15 people, all from IT, curriculum and instruction, those who were in charge of that, those who were in charge of finance and human resources. Dr. Watts has been involved in so many different departments. He brings really varied wealth of information, and unfortunately, you can't really capture a lot of that within 2 hours of watching him on a video. So this was a invaluable opportunity for us to understand the depth of his wealth of knowledge, his personal and professional demeanor in the workplace, his family values, all of that came through in our discussions. And I just want to share some of the strengths that people mentioned. We asked them, what is one of the strengths, the main strength you see from Dr. Watts? And some of the information that came out were also echoed by staff members here, but he has the ability to surround himself with talent. He has the intelligence and ability to communicate school finance as well. Communication was clearly a common comment. Collaboration and his building relationship style with other staff members. His community relations and outreach and engagement into the community, his interpersonal skills and his natural learner talent. He wants to share his knowledge, his high intellect, passion for educating kids. They talked quite a bit about his passion and his people skills. Let's see, inspiration to motivate others, make you feel like you are part of the solution to any challenges. They mentioned his wealth of experiences, again, from HR to curriculum to being a principal, going to administration, then back to being a principal, which he didn't consider a demotion, but he wanted to understand more about curriculum practices and instruction. And so he knew in 2005 his trajectory was to become a superintendent, and he went back to get those experiences, and also to build bridges across all sorts of instructional supports. So, it was just a very, very great eye-opening experience, and I'm just so thankful that we had the opportunity to do that.
So comments from other board members?
Well, we saw him on an initial video, and the thing that I noticed about him on the initial video was that he had great eye contact. came on a video, and he didn't have any notes. It wasn't rehearsed, I mean, it wasn't canned, he wasn't reading it, he hadn't practiced anything, he was just speaking from his heart. And then when we interviewed him 2 times, and the same thing, the eye contact is just phenomenal. And he's right there with you, and he's warm, he's calm, he's confident without being cocky, and it just makes you feel really great just to be in his presence. And so I really, just the personal interaction that I had with him, I just thought this is a really special man.
Well, I wanted to thank all of you and other staff and community members who participated in the process, because I know for me it was really helpful sort of seeing your input, and I really appreciated watching the videos when the 2 candidates were here, and that really helped me with my decision processing, seeing how they were interacting and seeing what your feedback was through those opportunities for you all to give feedback and share that with us.
And I'll just add one other thing. His mantra that people kept saying to us is he listens, he learns, and then he leads. And that listening, really being able to talk and listen to something, is something that he holds very dear, to be able to really listen and find out what people want. And that when he's talked to us about his plan for coming in, the first thing he wants to do is he is so ready to listen. You know, what are the things that we need? What are the great things that we're doing here? What are the things that we can continue on doing? And different people talked about how he's very good at being a mediator, going into a situation where there might be something that's maybe people aren't agreeing on what the next strategy is going to be, and he will be very thoughtful and listen during that process, and then afterwards say, here's what I think I heard, and bring out the best in both to be able to help people get to that place that we need to be at for kids. I guess one other thing is they talked about that we interviewed 2 principals, and they talked about how when he goes in to the schools, the first thing he's there is with kids. It's all about kids to him. And one of the things I believe he said in the public forums, as well as I know that he said with us, is that when he looks at it, he goes, I will have 27,000 students that have my last name and 1 that lives with me. And in talking to people, he truly walks the walk. And when he says things like that, he really means that from the bottom of his heart. He has every child's interest in mind when he's looking at things and ways to, maybe he knows that one size doesn't fit all. And how do we get to that point where we really can address for all students?
I just had, there were a lot of comments about him being very polished. And it was put in quotes, you know, too polished, and is it an act? And I can tell you very clearly, he is who he is based on what we heard. He does dress very professional. He's very, he has high intellect, and so though he comes across too polished, he knows how to roll up his sleeves. I mean, those were the direct quotes from staff. He knows how to roll up the sleeves. If there are issues where teacher isn't meeting standards, he knows how to work with the teacher, not just say you're not doing well, but he will find the resources to support those teachers. There hasn't been any parent that's complained about him while he was a principal. That's what we heard from community members. I mean, that's very rare to hear. We heard that from a community member. We heard that from a board member, one of their board members. So that board member has been there for 40 years. So, I mean, those are all, you can't get testimonials like that unless you hear from them, so.
And part of him being really polished, he was in an interview situation. You're going to do that when you're in an interview situation. When I went into he was eating his lunch, and I went into the room to shake his hand and talk with him, he was not in interview mode. He was in person-to-person, warm personality. So I'm not concerned about him not being able to speak to the masses. He's going to be fine.
All right. So if there's no further comments, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, motion passes. So just to let you know, the process from here, what we will now be doing is we're going into contract negotiations as part of the next part. And as part of that, then we'll determine the transition period of when he will actually start here. And so we'll be providing you with more information as that goes. I can tell you that in talking to Dr. Watts, he is so excited for being here. If he could have been here personally tonight, I know he would have been, but I know he was very excited. So we look forward to you all getting to know him better as we get to know him better as well. And so thank you.
Can we tell them about when we called him?
Sure.
We were sitting in the conference room and we're sitting around and we'd called him and Debbie had told him that we want him to be the superintendent, and there was silence on the other end, and we all went, oh no. and then after a couple seconds, he said, I'd be honored, and we all went, oh. And we told him, we laughed about it, and he said, I just put my head down, and I was just being grateful. Yeah, so it was really, that was.
And then the next question I said, are you sure you don't need to consult with your wife? Which he also said he appreciated but they had had a conversation prior, so we're all good there. All right, so we are going to move on to 5.02. This is on the Asset Preservation Program. And I'm not sure what we're doing here. So this is just for information and any discussion that we may have on here? Yes. Okay. So does anyone have any questions in regards to 5.02?
I was looking at the Cedar Heights, and looks like the lowest scoring on the building condition, and it's the main building. Do we have plans do we know what needs to be fixed, and do we have money and plans to fix it or upgrade it or whatever it is?
Mr. Long, welcome.
What I can do is I can check with the consultants who did the survey on the school and find out from them if there's any immediate needs for that school.
Okay.
I think part of the reason it's low is the state has changed some of the way we rate buildings and trying to bring the buildings more up to energy code, energy standards, and that school probably could use a little help with the energy standards. But I'd have to have them give me some information, and I can come back with that.
Okay, thanks.
I can get a report on that for you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments in regards to the report?
No, that pretty much answered mine. I was asking for clarity around the scoring, so I'm fine now.
Maya? Okay, thank you. So the next is 5.03, interlock agreement with interlocal purchasing system TIPS. And so I'm asking for a motion to approve resolution 1461.
I so move 5.03.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. So we'll open it up for discussion and questions. So Karen, we'll start with you.
I'm, because we have a co-op purchasing agency in our backyard, I'm wondering why we're looking at this one. What's the advantage to us?
Come on, green. Green light, green light.
First off, we belong to 7 different purchasing co-ops, including NSBAs and AASIs and that. So this is just another one to add to our processing that we can do in the purchasing department, and just gives us a bigger, broader. One of the important things with this purchasing co-op is that the company we buy portables from is one of their vendors. So we can go directly to them, and because the bidding has already been done.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Fred.
You might not be done, so. Maya, you had a question?
So is it only portables that we buy? What do we?
Pardon?
Is it only portables that we buy?
No, we buy it. This purchasing co-op will carry everything the school could want. In other words, paper, pencils, AV equipment, computers, things like that. All our purchasing co-ops carry that type of inventory.
Okay, so when we purchase from them, how does that work for budget, for accounting purposes? Is it broken down, the items that we purchase on our general fund vouchers?
Well, we'll purchase off a catalog. We will process the purchasing the same way we process with NSBA or any of the co-ops that we have here, either a P card or a purchase order. It will come through on the vouchers just like the other purchasing co-ops do. It's not going to be singled out. It'll just be a regular voucher.
Okay, what is the cost of the membership?
There is no cost to the membership. One of the reasons is this purchasing co-op is an educational service unit in Texas that covers a county just like Puget Sound, and there are a number of them, so we're going through that. They do this as a service. We also do the same thing. We buy some AV equipment through ESD 113 here in the state, and they're purchasing co-op, but there's no cost.
Okay. So the only other thing is I noticed that there weren't any dates on the interlocal agreement.
And the process that is used is you pass the resolution, there's a date on that resolution. We'll add the date that the resolution was passed into the agreement.
Okay, all right.
That's why we had to change the motion. Originally was to approve the agreement, but you need to approve the resolution tonight.
Okay, and is it good to put the name of Mr. Norse or Hal Norse into the resolution?
Yeah, he's the supervisor of purchasing who handles all that and does all that material.
Okay.
I guess our question is, so if he leaves,
what if he leaves?
Do we
Well, then
have to
we'll have
change
to
the
come back with
resolution?
another resolution.
Okay.
But, and let me just say, one of the things that's extremely important with all these purchasing co-ops that we belong to, it allows a district our size to run a purchasing department that has a supervisor and one buyer. Because they're doing the work for us and we're just reaping the fruits of their work.
Okay.
So it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Karen?
This is so this is nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit, that's right.
Yeah.
Probably has excess revenue over expenditures, but it's nonprofit.
Building maintenance.
So any other questions or I call for the vote? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 1461, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, motion passes. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there any items that the board would like to pull for tonight's consent agenda? Saying no. Maya, any that you wanted to pull?
Yes, just 6.08, I have a quick question.
Okay, so we'll pull 6.08.
And then I had a
I'm sorry. We're not there yet. Okay, 6.08, that's it.
6.08.
I had a clarifying question. Was that addition to the agenda for the other field trip, is that added to the consent agenda, or is that added as a separate item that will be?
Consent agenda.
Consent, okay.
Yes. Okay, so I'll go ahead and call for the vote on the, first for the motion to approve the consent agenda for minus 6.08.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Maya, 6.08.
Okay, for the vouchers, I just wanted to understand, Dr. Steddery, I know we talked about the items that were labeled sensitive and theft-sensitive items. I just wanted to understand what is our threshold dollar amount for expensing items?
In that category?
Yes.
If it's $5,000 or more, it is not, and it's equipment, it would be if it's 5,000 or less, it's in this category, what we have to pay for. Or if it's over and above that 5,000, it's a capital outlay.
Okay, so there was something over 5,000 in the last voucher, and that's why I'm asking, what is the threshold?
The single item might have been less than 5,000. There's probably a group of items in there that were totaled more than 5,000.
That's, okay, that's not what I
So,
saw,
so if they
but I'll go back.
said, well, 10 items for $500, they're under 5,000. It's not 5,000 as a aggregate, it's $5,000 for each item.
Right.
Then it's equipment, and it's 300 to 5,000. It's theft sensitive. If it's one of those items that theft sensitive, such as a computer or a printer, anything less than that is considered a supply.
Okay. So those are not inventory then?
Under $300, no.
I mean, the.
500 from the 300 to 5. Oh yes, they're tagged.
They're tagged.
They're tagged.
Okay.
Yes.
That's our decision, though.
But it's considered expense, it's not an asset, so.
It's our procedures that if it's above 300, we tag it.
Right, and it's an asset. The auditors come in, they ask to see our theft-sensitive items, and we show them the inventory, and they go around and find it. They go around and say, I want to see this tag number. If it's at Cedar Heights had better have it.
Okay.
Okay, so it's looked at every year by the state auditor's office.
Okay, okay, thank you. That's it.
Did you have another comment, Dr.
I had a question. Did we, when we approved on the first motion for the consent agenda, did we approve 6.09 and hold out 608?
I held out 6.08. I don't have a 6.09.
Was that the additional field trip?
Oh, that was a field trip.
Yeah, did you pull that out? Was that in the original vote?
I believe the motion was to approve the consent agenda less 6.08, which 6.09 would still be in it.
Because I clarified that
Yeah.
that was going to be in the consent
Okay,
agenda.
all right, we're good.
Okay, we're okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, Maya, if you're okay, and call for the motion on 6.08.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those, I almost said opposed. All those in favor of 6.08, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And Maya, you were an aye, right?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm
just wanted to make
sorry.
sure.
It's
All
a
right.
delayed eye.
That's okay. All right, so thank you. We're going to move on to 7.01. This is the first reading of revised policy 6114, gifts and memorials. And again, this is a first reading, so it is for just if there's any questions on this. We're not making a motion on it tonight. So are there any questions in regards to this revised policy?
Yes, I had a comment. Well, I guess on the policy, I was going to say I was pleased to see that the change of the language based on some conversations we've had and also the dollar amount too. And then I know that the procedures is only provided to us for information, but I did have some comments about the procedure, if that would be okay for me to make those comments. So in the procedure, in I think it's 2.3 and 3.1, I still saw the word approval in addition to the word acceptance. And I know it looked to me like in the policy that we were changing it from being approval to being acceptance by the board.
What I saw is it was two different things. There was, it said, in especially 3.0, it said acceptance and approval, and then just acceptance in another place.
So again, speaking to the.
It's just inconsistent, I think.
Okay, so speaking to the procedure that we'd like to be looked at just to make sure that there's consistency that it's.
We'll get it consistent.
Okay, great, thank you.
And in 2.2, it also is meeting for acceptance and approval.
Okay.
So
Okay, sounds like
3.1
Dr. Stedry has that to be able to make those changes, so thank you. Anything else on that? Excellent. All right, thank you for your work on that, and we'll have that will come at our next board meeting for acceptance. So, all right, so we are on to communication from the audience, and I am not aware of any cards, so we will go to the superintendent's report.
Sure. President Strauss, members of the board and audience, the board and staff are looking at a school-based health center to be located at Kent Meridian High School. And the board is invited to join me and other staff members for a tour of two school-based health centers in the Seattle School District. on Friday, March 27th. The two schools are Cleveland High School and a tour from 9:30 to 10:30. And the second school is Chief South High School from 11 to noon. Transportation will be provided from the district office, leaving at about 8:15. Maya has indicated she is attending, so please let me know if you plan to attend, if we can, so we can take into account of all the people that need to attend. I'd like Tuan Nguyen to please stand. And will you please stand? Some of you may know this, but not all of you know this, that he was chosen as the 2015 Outstanding Technology Leader of the Year throughout the nation. Let me add that this award, this honor, is awarded to an individual who has influenced technology in education and made a significant long-term contribution, who has collaborated beyond the institution, building, district, or region, and who has participated as a leader, presenter, and volunteer. So we're very proud of you, Tuan. Congratulations to you. Additionally, we've rescheduled our Kent Meridian Community Budget Forum. As you know, we had some widespread illness at Early Learning Center last week, and so we've rescheduled that event on the Budget Forum for Thursday, April 16th from 6 o'clock to 7:30. And we are going to plan on a visit to the Kent Meridian location where the health center may be located. And we've identified that with the principal. And we would like to see if the board would like to schedule a time to join us. We will be polling the board to find a time that is that can meet your schedule. So you can anticipate having an opportunity to see the location. I think you'll be very impressed. That's it for tonight.
Excellent, thank you. And then along with all this, we'll be getting more information in regards to the whole health center process.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Great. All right. Well, we're on, I guess I have one audience member who wanted to do public comment. Is that okay? Go ahead. Yeah.
I didn't.
Sorry, that's okay.
Sorry,
Yeah. So,
super busy.
That's
I was
right.
listening and I didn't want to interrupt.
All right. So, Kirsten Brown, and you will have 3 minutes to adjust the board.
Okay, so really quick, I don't know the new superintendent, but I'm sure I'll meet him at some point. Congratulations to you. And this is about half days and vacations. Since I only have 3 minutes, or now under 3 minutes, I'm going to talk about that. I really feel that we should get rid of the half days and the midwinter break and maybe shorten spring break, or maybe because the tests, the impacts it has, it's so disruptive to the kids' schedule that it's really hard for them to get back into the zone to learn. And so it's impacting their test scores, but it's also hugely impacting the budgets of moms and single parents and parents that have to work. Like, I was talking to some parents and they said, I have to move because of the half day and the midwinter break, I had to spend an extra $400 this month for childcare, and I can't afford rent. And so, so those are kind of the comments that I'm hearing. And I feel that with kids' education and keeping them engaged and connected, I feel like those half days and midwinter breaks is just too much, especially after they've had 2 weeks off for Christmas and then they have another week in the spring. Like, parents just can't take that much time off of work, and it's really impacting budgets, and it's really impacting, I feel like, their learning, because it's just too much disruption to get into the schedule. And then the other thing is, with third grade reading, I just feel like if kids are supposed to be at this par, they're at par or a little below par, and then they spend all summer away from school, getting that much further behind. So I would like to see some summer tutoring or summer classes for these kids to get them. And I've talked to Dr. Millicent Borishade about this a little bit, about taking advantage for the budget, opening up work study for Green River Community College. So then Green River Community College, through their grants that in their education, they can fund it, but then we can take advantage of those work study students on the Green River's budget as opposed to the school district's budget. And so that might be a good solution. And then the other thing is I would also like to see, if we have to do those half days, I would really like to see more environmental science classes on those because I just feel like with technology, the impact of environment is kind of a big issue that a lot of people are sort of moving forward. And I just feel like, what are we doing to protect the environment? And can we do more environmental ecology classes? And can we do more art classes tied into those? So if we have to do half days, those would be good ways to enter in other curriculums to wrap around more interest as opposed to just trying to pack all that math and spelling and reading and all that stuff into 2 hours to kind of say, okay, for this day, we're going to explore this. Is that fine? Okay. All right.
A quiet beat, but thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you coming out. All right, so the last thing we have on our agenda tonight is board reports. And I know that we all went, the four of us were at the National School Boards Association this past week. So one thing that I think would be helpful is I'm going to ask that the board all do a written report out, and then I'd like to propose that maybe we do a work session to kind of talk about the things that we talked about. So the reason I say that is because I know you all want to share all the things that you learned tonight, but I'm going to say let's not share everything we learned tonight. So with that, we'll start with Agda.
All right, well, I'll just share two things, even though I could go on and on and on. I was so excited from the opportunity to be able to be there. So one thing I'll share is I was very impressed with a student who spoke to us, Adora Savitek, who's currently a freshman at UC Berkeley, but went to the Lake Washington School District, was originally from the state. And she she's a writer, was a writer at a very young age, and spoke to us on the importance of student voice. And it just motivated me even more for us to have more opportunities where our students can come and we can go places to talk to our students and hear what's important to them about our schools. And then the second thing I'll share is, of course, as your legislative representative, I did go to a session that was about the Elementary and Secondary Education Act reauthorization. And the one takeaway that was concerning for me was an update on that, which many of you may know already, but in both the Senate and the House versions that are out there, that the proposed funding for Title I is maintained at a flat level, which was of great concern to us in our district and to NSBA, because even with because enrollment's increasing, we're going to need more of those funds, and other reasons. Those Title I funds help us in so many ways. So if you have any communications with your congresspeople, our congresspeople, to please, and you could maybe call that out, that we need additional funding for Title I. So that's
Thank you. So Maya?
So I attended about 10 sessions in the 2 days I was there, and I have 14 pages of notes, so I'll synthesize it. But I do want to bring up a few things that I thought were really valuable. One of the sessions that I attended really talked about process and performance management, and looking at the DMAIC process, and I don't know if some of you may know the model, looking at defining, measuring, analyzing, improving, and looking at controls of our processes, and how do we redirect funds back into the classroom. And so there are lots of issues where people say, well, this is not a business, but we are in a business when we're looking at our finances. And so how do we develop some policies to ensure there's monies are being properly used. And so that was really eye-opening, and I'll write that up. But I also went into some sessions on school-based health centers, just as a precursor to where we're headed, to understand the pitfalls that might happen down the road. So I thought that was really valuable, and I'll share that information. And then went in and don't anyone get scared. I just wanted to understand what school uniforms and dress code issues were out there, just as an exploration. But lots of great things came out of that meeting, particularly in how we communicate some of that information to our families. And then several things to look at. How do we look at our district in a different way? How do we do things in a different way than we've done it before, with declining enrollment, and also, with the introduction of virtual and charter schools, how do we look at a plan to make really the best use of our money? So I'll share all that later.
Great, thank you, Karen.
Oh, my notes just disappeared.
Oh, no.
They're here. There they are. Okay. I also went to sessions all day on Saturday and Sunday. I'm just going to talk about one because there's so many of them. I just need to get my thoughts back together again. But the one, where is it? Nope. Okay, I'm going to get lost again here. It's about, it's transforming high-poverty schools through a culture of hope. And the speaker was just really enthusiastic about building culture of hope. And I bought her book, and I'm going to start reading it. But it talks about how if teachers are feeling overwhelmed and helpless, hopeless, whatever, that's going to transfer to students. And that if conversely, if the students are feeling that way, they're not going to be able to learn. So, I mean, it can work for teachers if they're feeling that way. It fits right into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. She said there were 4 seeds of hope. The first one was a sense of optimism. Second one is a sense of belonging. Third one is a sense of pride, self-esteem, and self-confidence. And the fourth one is a sense of purpose and relevance. And the purpose and relevance was our class is connected to the real world. Why am I taking this class? And I think a lot of what we're doing right now is working towards that so that the older kids really feel that and that are going to be more engaged in their classes. But I think it's a really good thing to think about, and I don't think it takes a whole lot of money to develop a culture of hope. So I'm going to be reading about that and reporting on it further.
Great. Thank you. So one of the things that resonated with me is you may or may not know public education is under attack. Probably heard that. We had our final concluding speaker at the end of the conference was Montel Williams. And he's one of our lead spokespeople right now. NSBA has started a stand up for public education specifically. And he came to talk about that. And when he first came into the room, he came not onto the stage, but he came off to the side and he's yelling, mountain move, mountain move. And then he's like, okay, wait. And he stops and he goes, okay, everybody stand up. And he had us do this little exercise and talked about engagement and how important it is to be engaged. And he said, it's not enough to stand up for public education. It's time to also speak up. And there were about 5,000 school board members from across the country, as well as Puerto Rico and Canada were also represented. And he said, even if 20 school board members in a local area could get together and say, we are doing good things in public education. We have good teachers, we have good staff, we have good students, and get that message out, it would really be helpful and impactful to let people know that our public schools are not failing. Our public schools are doing what needs to be done for our kids, and there is hope in public education. And so it's just very moving to hear him say those words and to encourage and challenge each of us there to do more of that, to really do that stand up as well as stand up, but speak up. So he also the National Association gave him a T-shirt that says, "I stand up for public education," and he promised on that stage that day to wear it. He's making an appearance on the Dr. Oz show on April 2nd, and he is going to show up on that with his T-shirt that says, "I stand up for public education." So it's just one of those reminders again that we're doing great things, but we as a collective need to be more vocal about letting people know the great things that we are doing, and that our schools are being successful, and our kids can and will be successful in public schools. So I'm going to leave on that note. But I would ask the board, if possible, if we could try to make a goal to have everything written up by next Wednesday. It's about a week's worth of time. And then I will work with Dr. Apostle to be able to get that scheduled so we can have a work session, because I think it would be good to have people have a chance to read that information as well as talk and share some ideas, especially as we start doing some strategic planning for in the future, how we can incorporate things in that might be beneficial for our district when we're looking at policy and budgets. So, all right. So with that, thank you everyone for coming tonight. We appreciate your attendance, and we are adjourned. Have a wonderful night and drive safe.